All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video, getting into the top showdown plays on this Friday night. So this slate is already looking like it's going to be a better, more predictable slate than yesterday's slate. That being said, yesterday's slate was predictable in terms of playing time and whatnot. There's just a lot of random touchdowns. Obviously, that is how NFL DFS goes. That can be the make or break point. That being said, I do think we have a lot more clarity on this slate, which I like. And maybe that's just because of the time that I'm doing this. Obviously, doing this a few hours before lineup block, 5 or so hours before lineup block, that's going to be huge. And so looking at the Lions right now, we are expected to get around the same playing time that they got the last 2 weeks. Okay, looking at the quarterback position, Sudfeld has led the room there in terms of playing time. Now, both have looked terrible. Teddy Bridgewater was trash last week. I mean, he looked worse than Nate Sudfeld did in week 1, and that is very difficult to do. They both have looked bad. But if they're playing about a half of football, that's going to be intriguing. Now, we just got news on Malik Willis that I'll touch on later on in this video, to the point where, you know, we're probably only playing these two with a stack, okay? And we could really stack this game because this game's appealing, because I think we are going to get a decent amount of playing time. Looking at Craig Reynolds, guys, he was terrible last week in terms of production, but he did play 52% of the snaps, and he started as well. Okay, he didn't play in week 1, so I do think there's a good chance that he could get that playing time again, just simply because he didn't play in week 1. Makes sense to get some playing time. If we go and look at their depth chart right now, it kind of makes sense for him to get playing time because Gibbs, Montgomery, probably not going to play too much. Jefferson, he's only okay, you know, not someone that's really going to break the slate most likely. Benny Snell is there as well. And then the rookie that a lot of people were excited about, he is injured, he's not going to play. And then they have a tight end. So that really just leaves these 4, but given the fact that Craig Reynolds didn't play in week 1, I think there's a good chance we see him again. He's a guy that can get some targets out the backfield. And at the receiver position, the issue that I have on this slate is that it's pretty clear that we want to be on these Detroit Lions receivers. The question is, how many of them do we want to be on, and which one directly do we want to be on? Like yesterday, we knew that we wanted to be on Devon Allen for the Eagles, Nagata for the Eagles, and then Kane for the Eagles. It turned out Kane was the slightly better play, but we knew that we wanted to be on those 3. It's just sometimes, you know, kind of getting lucky as to which one we want to be on the most. And for me, they have all kind of looked good. You got Antone Green here, who really kind of stood out, I thought, last week more so than the other 2. You have Dylan Drummond, who's, you know, been pretty impressive thus far this preseason, I would say. Also got a lot of playing time last week. And then we also have Chase Cota here, who I realized last week, I think I was calling him Chris Cota, my bad. But he has been someone that has been very impressive, I would say, thus far as preseason. He's probably the safest bet to be a good play, to be a play that's not going to hurt you. And I mean, if we look at this touchdown, very much a lucky touchdown. I mean, that's kind of a little bit of a rub route there. Wide open. He didn't really earn that one, I would say, but still been something that's been standing. And that's because, I mean, the reason why I like these guys is because they are expected to get a lot of playing time, at least 50% of the snaps, especially with kind of how banged up they are at the receiver position as well. And then James Mitchell at tight end, I think he's going to be kind of the one tight end play that we are going to be going out of our way to play for the Lions. Now let's go ahead and get into the other side of this game. We have the Carolina Panthers. So the Carolina Panthers, they have the starters expected to play 2 to 3 series again. And then I do think we're going to get Matt Corral playing about 50% of the work as well. So, you know, decent amount of playing time for him. But once again, I do think we're just going to be rolling with Malik Willis again. Looking at this receiver room, they are pretty banged up. I mean, the only starting receiver that isn't injured is Adam Thielen. Last week, we saw Javon Wims a lot on the field as expected. And then Shi Smith. I personally think Shi Smith is a worse version of DJ Moore. He's kind of that type of player. I thought the Panthers kind of viewed him as that last year as well. I think he could easily be a sneaky good play on this slate. Now, Javon Wims, probably going to be a player that people are on a lot. And then Derek Wright as well, the star from preseason week 1. We need to know what his status is as well. Because if he is out, then yes, we are easily looking at Shi Smith. That should mean more playing time for him. And also Javon Wims, probably a safe bet for him to get playing time. Really, the biggest issue that I have, though, with these kind of teams, with these plays specifically, I should say, is that Shi Smith, he did stand out, 5 targets, you know, really went off. Almost 10 DK points there. Yeah, that's solid. We like that a lot. Jonathan Mingo, he is someone that was injured. Hamstring, I don't expect him to play. DJ Chark, not expected to play. And so it was weird that, like, Javon Williams played a bunch of snaps again last week, but only had, you know, 2 targets. Same thing for Tommy Tremble as well, who played a bunch of snaps. Probably someone that we want to look at as well at the tight end position. We actually have a decent tight end pool to go from tonight. He got 2 targets as well, but we can see, yeah, Shi Smith was kind of the easy play there. But once again, Derek Wright led the way in preseason week 1. If anything, if we are pulling in stats from preseason at all that we're going to be referring to for preseason week 3. For the most part, we should be deferring to preseason week 1. And we did see Derek Wright, had a good game, 3 targets. Javon Williams in that game, 7. And then we see Shi Smith as well. He should be a safe bet to have some production. But yeah, looking at this game, I mean, I do think we want to be pulling in some receivers from this game just because the likelihood of us being able to hit on one of these receivers is going to be greater. Like I said, it's just expected that these guys are going to get some playing time. So it's really just which one of the Lions receivers do we want to be on, and then kind of going from there. I do think Mitchell is going to be kind of a key part in a lot of builds. And then for what it's worth, looking at the Carolina Panthers running back room, it does seem like Spencer Brown and Blackshear are going to be the 2 that we're going to be focusing on again. That's just going to default to really who gets the like case in terms of touchdown upside. Like that's a guessing game. I do think they need to be in our player pool because they could score a touchdown. We saw yesterday, once again, a lot of players that you wouldn't really be on were able to score some touchdowns. Kenyon Drake really went off, surprisingly, who's looked bad. He didn't even look good yesterday, but was able to score a touchdown. And so Blackshear has been someone that has been able to score for them, but they both look kind of this, that's just trying to get lucky. So probably one of the worst bad beats you'll get this whole NFL season was last week with the Patriots. Not only did Trey Nixon get injured in that game, they ended up having to suspend the game because of a serious injury with about 11 minutes left. And in preseason DFS, that's a lot. I had 4 players in my best lineup just have 11 minutes, 10 minutes of game playing time get taken out. I know a lot of you guys did as well. We had some low-owned players, JJ Taylor, Elijah Wilson for the Packers and whatnot, Malik Heath, 1% owned. It was tilt, okay? That being said, that could actually lead people maybe not to play the Patriots as much. Like, sure, they might know that information, that the game was suspended, and heck, maybe they don't. It's preseason. But people are going to look at the stats. They're going to watch those stats and see not a lot of production. And so that could be sneaky good. And a lot of people might not know that Trey Nixon was supposed to be a great play last week. He got injured. Like he was a good play in preseason week 1. We typically see that player be a very strong asset for our preseason NFL DFS builds. We saw that with Wilkerson the last 2 seasons. We've seen it with Jacoby Myers prior. We typically see that. So this week, it is expected to be Webb kind of stepping up into that role, who played 50% of the snaps last week. He's kind of the default kind of slot, easy target player for quarterback. And so definitely someone we want to be looking at, and probably going to be a sneaky low-owned play. I don't know if a lot of people are going to catch that because the production wasn't exactly there. And just for what it's worth, the receivers that are currently banged up are Tyquan Thornton and Nixon. Don't really expect the stars to play too much. We did see Bailey Zappi play 69% of the snaps last week. I'm actually very curious as to see if we're going to get that again this week. This is something that the Patriots have done in previous preseasons where they know who their QB2 is and they know their QB3 spot. Doesn't really matter because they're bad. We could actually see Zappy get a lot of work again this week. And then with that being said, running back Kevin Harris is expected to be back in this week. And I will say, I don't know that for sure, but he did return to practice on Tuesday. Typically, that means they're going to play. Or sorry, Perry Strong. Apologies for that. Kevin Harris is someone that hasn't looked that good. And then that just really leaves these 3 to operate in that backfield again. And once again, it was very strange. JJ Taylor, I thought, was kind of the easiest play or one of the easier plays on the slate last week. It was pretty low owned and just kind of strange. He's someone that, sure, maybe not going to be the best play in terms of rushing upside, but he's someone that is involved in passing game. Could easily end up with like 4 catches for 20 yards. And, a little bit more game flow dependent with Malik Willis playing a lot at the quarterback position. Maybe we don't like that as much because obviously they might be grounding and pounding a little bit more at the end of the game, but we'll see. And then at tight end, for what it's worth, a lot of playing time here, but not a lot of targets, so probably not someone we want to be looking at. Let's go to move into Tennessee. Okay, so we do know the news just got it that Malik Willis is expected to sit. Okay, we'll see on my slide here. I haven't updated this because this broke right before I started my video. And so with that, I think we're just going to see a ton of Malik Willis again. I don't expect the tight end starters to start. They could just because they didn't do any joint practices, but my expectation is they're going to stick to the script that they've done the past few preseasons where the stars just don't play. So yeah, we should be firing off Malik Willis once again. And actually, last week he was only 60% owned. And I say only because I had him in 85% of my builds, ended up getting 16 points. I was very shocked at a lot of the ownership last week. And a very nice part was that we had a nice stack last week that was really strangely low owned as well. It was this stack between Malik Willis and Julius Chestnut, just because they were kind of the 2 obvious plays on the slate. And Chestnut was like, I think 10 to 20% owned. It was just strange. He's looked good. Expect to get a lot of snaps again today. I get the quarterback running back stack you don't exactly want to do, but sometimes you just have to play the correct plays. And this is just kind of preseason NFL DFS where there's, for some reason, you would think, one of the top NFL preseason experts and really the OG in preseason that is a play that I want to be on. Heck, we could actually see his snaps go up a little bit. Now, I do want to point out Spears looked really good on limited snaps. He could be someone that you're looking at again, but Chestnut's going to be the play. Okay. And then from there, looking at the receiver position, Burks was out. Kyle Phillips probably going to be out. And so one player I want to call out, Harrison had 72% of the snap. Very crazy. And one thing that I picked up, and I'll touch on Harrison a little bit more here. One thing I want to point out as well, Mason Kinsey, he's kind of the top preseason receiver for them. We just need him to get more playing time. He only played in 36% of the snaps last week, but was their top pass catcher. And he was the first week as well. What I found very interesting is that he actually came in and played 3% of the snaps at quarterback last week. He was their emergency quarterback. I think he had 1 rush or 2 rushes. Just interesting to note. That's one of the things that I picked up watching preseason film. But yeah, looking at Harrison, I mean, he had 1 target, he played 72% of the snaps, didn't look good, didn't pop at all. Man, it's just, I don't want to pass up on a guy if he's going to play 70% of the snaps again, because that's just a mistake. But I don't know. And for what it's worth, guys, Malik Willis didn't look that bad. So let's kind of look at a roster construction that we have going thus far. I really like this stack once again. They look good. Malik Willis is going to rush the ball. He had 91 rushing yards last week. Julius Chestnut should be involved again. Obviously been impressive. Maybe we don't need to go this hardcore on Detroit, Carolina, because we might have some better plays later on. Like I said, I do think Webb at the receiver position could be a very sneaky play at receiver. I don't think many people are going to be on him. Douglas is someone that's kind of banged up as well. Don't expect him to play that much anyways. So that really doesn't leave that many players. So Pitts is also somebody you could look at in that game, but I think Webb is kind of the obvious play there. And then maybe JJ Taylor if you wanted to as well. Now let's go ahead and get into that third game on the slate. We got the Chargers versus the Niners. Okay, so very interesting here in terms of playing time. We saw Easton Stick get all the playing time due to game flow last week. That tells me that they don't really like Max Duggan. Now, the tendencies for the Chargers in the preseason is that the third stringers typically do get a lot of playing time. So we might actually see the playing time allocation from preseason week 1 be more true than what we saw last week. That being said, this is something that's definitely worth monitoring. If we get news that Easton Stick is indeed going to play maybe 3 quarters, we need to fire him up, okay? I would almost take Easton Stick playing 3 quarters than Malik Willis playing 4. Definitely worth looking at least. Also, running back Elijah Dotson has been someone that has been popping up in 2 ways. Week 1, he looked really good. Had 2 awesome plays. Week 2, had 2 terrible drops, 2 untimely drops as well. But I mean, there's no really doubting the talent that's there. Just kind of the raw athletic ability. I mean, look at that speed. Gets to the outside and he is gone. Okay. Had another big play in that game in week 1 as well. And he is someone that is currently fighting for a roster spot. And just looking at the other running backs that are there, Josh Kelly, Spiller, probably going to get some work, but then it really should be Dotson getting a majority of the work. He did have 3 targets, should have had 2 catches, could have easily had 5 points just receiving last week, and a little bit of garbage time. Looking at the receiver position is slightly loaded, I will say. 2 players that are fighting for a roster spot would be Keelan Doss and John Hightower. It does seem like they're a little bit higher on Hightower. I don't really like either of them too much. Keelan Doss is the one that had a better game last week, but I do want to point out the other player, the guy that won me the GPP last week, one of the GPPs last week, Terrell Bynum. He was actually listed in the game as a player to watch. And I bring that up because a lot of the times we will see broadcast, the production crew kind of get some inside information that us and the public don't get. And I mentioned that with the Raiders last week with Trey Tucker in week 1. He was getting talked up a ton. And so it wasn't a shock that he was heavily involved in preseason week 2. We can actually see that be the case with Bynum again. Now, he only had 1 catch, that awesome, kind of very lucky catch, 4th and 15, 1 for 39. But he is someone that wouldn't be shocking to see have a big game. You know, if you're doing a showdown slate, definitely someone you want to be playing a little bit. And then tight end wise, I think the tight end room really comes down to 3 plays in terms of who we want to be on the most. Stone Smart was someone that was heavily involved last week, and he actually played a decent amount of snaps as well. I just want to be shocked to see him play a lot. It really comes down to me, James Mitchell, Stone Smart, or the next tight end I'm going to mention for the Niners. And that tight end is going to be Cameron Latu, who really has kind of been really impressive last week for sure. But he has been someone that has been impressing in camp apparently. So had a touchdown last week. I think he's someone that we should be looking at in some capacity. My biggest question mark for the Niners, and we haven't really gotten this, is playing time. And man, I don't want to bury the lead, I guess, because we have no idea what's going to go on at that quarterback room right now. As it sits right now, I mean, we're 7 or so hours before lineup lock or before game lock in that game. And Trey Lance, he didn't report to practice after being named the QB number 4, not even the number 3. And actually, I think the tight ends would be a perfect landing destination for Trey Lance. This might be a little bit of a hot take, but I would say he is currently better than 3 starters in this league. And I think Baker Mayfield, Desmond Ridder, and then actually I think if you put him in that Bears offense with his better arm than than Justin Fields, a little bit more accurate, I think that offense would flow better with Trey Lance. Obviously, Justin Fields really elite rushing the football, but the arm lackluster. That's my way of saying Trey Lance does look good. If we get news that Trey Lance is actually going to audition kind of for another team, if you will, we have seen that in other preseasons where they want to highlight a player that they want to try to trade. This has happened a bunch. I remember Mims last year, I think it was in preseason week 3, played a bunch because they wanted to trade him. We could see that happen with Trey Lance. I don't think that's the most likely of the scenarios. Maybe a little bit of Purdy, maybe a little bit of Darnold. And then do we actually see quarterback number 4, Brandon Allen, who is actually now quarterback number 3, get a bunch of playing time? We might. This is something worth monitoring, especially if you are maybe playing a showdown slate. And then looking at guys, Ronnie Bell. This guy has been super impressive. Let's go to my Twitter account to show you guys some of those highlights. And I think it's worthwhile. I mean, he just looked the part. I mean, just loved really everything about his game. Kind of reminded me a lot of Deebo Samuel, if you will. Obviously, maybe not as powerful as Deebo Samuel, but he does a lot of the same things well. Loved his ability to get open, loved his route running, loved his ability to feel where the open space was. And then obviously just the bursting up the field and really make a better, bigger play. Just really standing out. He actually played the most snaps last week for the Niners as well. The biggest question mark is, does he get the Tank Dell, Demario Douglas treatment where, all right, we know we have you, don't want other teams figuring out what they have in Ronnie Bell. Now, I think he was so impressive to the point where he might just get playing time again. This is my biggest, toughest part about this slate is what do we do with Ronnie Bell? Because we do have those really good plays at the receiver position in this early game. And then we also know that Webb is going to be a good play for the Patriots. We have a couple of decent plays for the Chargers, although I would say Ronnie Bell is going to be well worth the risk compared to the Chargers players. That's kind of my biggest issue. And also, I want to call out that they did just bring in Anthony Miller, and it seemed like their head coach is actually really excited to see what they have in him. I don't expect him to play a lot, but you also have Tate Martin there, who someone that they are kind of excited about as well. Played a decent amount. And then Willie Snead, kind of a veteran guy that is expected to get a decent amount of run in this game as well. Wouldn't be surprising to see him get a few catches, but Ronnie Bell's kind of the obvious option there. It's just, man, it's very easy once again to know which players we want to be on this slate. The biggest issue I have is our proper allocation of ownerships to them. Ronnie Bell's one of those. And then just looking at the running back room here, guys, Torian Davis-Price expect to get the most work. They did just sign Brian Hill because Jeremy McNichols got injured, banged up, not expected to play. So they did just sign Brian Hill earlier this week. We don't expect Brian Hill to do much work. So to me, it's going to be Jordan Mason probably starting, getting a decent amount of the work. He only had 5 rushing attempts last week for 17 yards. Obviously, that's not great. And then Davis-Price really looked terrible. I thought I don't really want much of him, but once again, he could fall into the end zone, could be on the field in a touchdown situation and get lucky for you. So before I go ahead and kind of give you guys a first look build here, just want to remind you guys of the promo code that's currently going on the 9to5 website. Get 50% off your first 9to5 membership. This is going to be for new members only. Use the promo code playoffs because while the Tour Championship for Fantasy Golf, for actually the PGA Tour, is going on right now, it's closing up on Sunday. This promo code, you got a few more days left. Take advantage of it. Get the 9to5 membership for $10 a month. Actually use the promo code and get it for $5 a month. And so the nice part about going Malik Willis and Julius Chestnut at running back and quarterback is I don't feel the need to play a receiver simply because, and guys, Malik Willis actually didn't look terrible last week. I should have made this clear. The receivers were worse than the quarterback play. It was kind of like, oh, I don't want to say this. It was kind of like Nathan Peterman with the Bills, where he gets a lot of hate for his quarterback play with the Bills when really he had the worst receiver room ever. That's kind of how it felt with Malik. I know it's ugly to say, guys, okay? But that's kind of how it felt last week for Malik Willis. Obviously, we're playing him for his rushing upside. Yeah, at running back, just kind of breaking it down here, guys, I probably would want to go one of these two and just try to get lucky, kind of alternating a little bit. Don't mind the idea of some of Craig Reynolds, but I could see his snap share drop. I do think J.J. Taylor is a very logical play to get a lot of playing time. Dotson is definitely someone I'm intrigued to play because of his upside. You know, he could be someone that gives us GPP winning upside, whereas J.J. Taylor should just be a safe play. And then receiver-wise, it's, once again, it's mixing and matching. Tight end-wise, we have 3 kind of obvious tight end plays. Mitchell's one of them. Then we got Cameron Latu here. Pretty impressive. And then we also have Stone Smart. Like, honestly, we're probably doing 33% split on all 3 of these and just hoping for the upside with one of them hitting. And defensively, I am struggling. I would say the Panthers might be a good D to play just because of how bad the quarterbacks have looked for the Lions and kind of how bad the Lions offense has looked thus far. That being said, the Panthers haven't looked that good at all. They're probably going to be the worst team in the league. With Malik Willis playing at quarterback, the Patriots defense should certainly be in play. It's kind of one of those weird situations where do we want to play Patriots defense if we have 2 easy plays here? I don't really love that. And then maybe we get news that, I don't know, Brandon Allen is going to play the whole game. Then maybe the Chargers defense is someone that we're looking at. Brandon Allen, not terrible, but defense is definitely a toss-up here. And like yesterday, the Steelers were kind of the easy play at defense. We don't have that this game. So it's kind of unfortunate there. That's going to be all for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the coverage. If you did, make sure to give a like and subscribe. Let's have a good slate today. And as always, guys, let's keep cashing.